Everything, 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 everything is bullshit. It's bullshit. Everything, 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 everything is bullshit. It's bullshit. It came out of a bull. It landed on the ground. It grew a little mushroom, and then a hairy ape man, he put it in his mouth. He started having thoughts, all kinds of ideas, grew himself a little ego, invented a new language, but then he built a tower, designed a system of power. You know, I read it in the paper. He made a tiny computer that fits inside your hand, communicate across the planet, look back into the cosmos, post a picture for your Facebook, make a profile on your Snapchat, murder people from a distance, and laugh at videos of cats. Everything, 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 everything is bullshit. It's bullshit. Oh, everything, 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 everything is bullshit. Everything is bullshit. It's just a bunch of funny bullshit.
Oops, I cut it off there. Still going. All right, there, it's done. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope. I hope you can hear me. Can I get a 1 or thumbs up or something in the chat and know that you can hear me? I'm not pulling a total boomer because I'm doing a kind of weird thing. I'm getting like some feedback on my main computer, so I'm actually running the audio through one computer and the screen through another. Yeah. You got to figure it out. So I did. So I hope you guys can hear me. I see my things moving, so I guess you can. The thing that's, bouncing up and down and all that. Anyway, I see a 3. Oh, 1. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Fish. The fish got nukes. All right. Good. You guys can hear me. Hello, Sean, and Mouthgate Ape, and SCE, and Gendai, and who else is in here? I saw Rusty, and Char, and all you guys. Who else? Who else? Did I miss anybody? James, how are you? I think I got everybody who's commented so far. MGTOW Smurf, and I think that's everybody. Kind of feel like, and I'll show my age. Do you guys remember, what was it, Rundorama? I think it was Wonderama. She would hold up a mirror and be like, and I see Bob, and I see Elizabeth, and just waiting for your name to get called, right? So you'd have to be a child of the 70s to understand that. And 60s, I imagine. I think that show was on for many years. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing great. Tonight, we're going to have a little fun, I think. I had guys in the Gilded just send me links, and I'm just going to look at stories and read them. And if anybody wants to jump in here and join me as we go through some of these articles, I don't know what the articles are about, except for the basic headline. So I tried to have blind links, but nobody could seem to figure it out. Was it Romper Room, MGTOW Smurf? I feel like it was, I feel it was Wonderama. Was it Romper Room? I guess it was Romper Room. I don't know. They all kind of, those shows all just kind of blend together, right? When you get to be this age and you haven't seen it in, 50 years, however long it's been. Maybe there was Captain Kangaroo in there. Remember all that? Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm going to put the link in the chat if anybody wants to jump in and share some stories that we're going to go through. Miss Vicky, was she on Romper Room? See, I don't know. It's all just kind of a way distant memory now for me on that. I just kind of know the basics. I remember the basics, and that was about it. All right. So you guys are talking Electric Company. Electric Company was kind of funky. I remember that being like, one show they'd be talking about like disco, and then the next show they'd have a thing about Kiss. It was like, should they be exposing young children to a band like Kiss? Kiss was huge in the 70s, if you remember, and it was everywhere. So anyway, Captain Kangaroo, yeah, that guy I don't quite remember the Captain Kangaroo show. Vaguely, I remember he had the red suit and he had that weird Dutch boy haircut, and but I don't remember a lot of details of that show. Just they were all kind of the same, They're all very similar. Any theme for the stories? Gendai is asking. No, well, but if you guys want to jump in on here with me and put a link in the private chat and whatnot that I'm not aware of, what it is, just don't get me kicked off. Don't give me a link that's going to be like porno or something crazy where I'm going to get knocked off and get my channel yeeted. Don't do that. But if you want, like I said, if you want to jump in and put a link in the private chat or join me here. Mr. Green Jeans. Wasn't Mr. Green Jeans on? Wasn't that Mr.
The only option I found is Mr. Green Jeans on.
That was my Siri. No, Siri, I don't need to know who Mr. Green Jeans was. I guess Mr. Green, I thought he was Mr. Rogers, but you can't have Mr. Rogers and Mr. Green Jeans on the same show, right? Too many Mr. Misters. Right. So I guess Mr. Green Jean was on Captain Kangaroo. How did I get on this? Jesus Christ. What the hell am I talking about? All right. Trump cancels Department of Education. Yeah, I heard about that. And so let's just start with the first one that I got pulled up. Share screen. Window. And I really like the idea of this. I like the idea. Raid incoming, out of service. There's a raid coming my way. Billy says that he wants to live life on the edge. Okay, so I guess Mr. Green Jeans, it seems like everybody's saying Mr. Green Jeans was part of Captain Kangaroo. Okay, all right. So, okay, this is a story that we were discussing, or I was wanting to discuss. El Salvador offers to jail Americans, Rubio says. Now, I like this idea just for the fact of when you think about all these illegals coming in or now going out, right? But then you have the ones that have committed heinous crimes. What do you do with those guys, right? I mean, they need to pay they need to be punished for their crimes, right? So it doesn't make a lot of sense to ship them back to wherever they came from, where they're just going to potentially not serve any time for their crime. That's not very fair, right? But then it's like, oh, now we got to house these fucks, right? That's not really fair to us either. So it makes a lot of sense to me for El Salvador, since I don't know if you guys heard about El Salvador is really kind of cracking down, and they've taken a lot of gangs off the streets and filling up all their prisons full of them. So now they're making an offer to us for us to take care, or for them to take care of the criminals. And I got some guys who have jumped in. We got, let me get them in here. Nate. Good evening. How are you, sir?
Hey, what's up, Billy? Long time no chat. How you been?
Good. Good. How are you? You've been kind of
Living
MIA. You're always
Oh, dude, I've been busier than a no-legged man in a butt kicking contest.
That's pretty busy.
Yeah. The mental visual should give you a pretty good idea of what my life has been like the past few months.
Yeah.
But glad to see you here. Glad to see all the usual suspects in the crowd here.
Yeah. It's good seeing you too. It's good to hear from you. It's been like 5 months or more.
About 3 to 4.
Okay, yeah, I'm about right. Yeah,
yeah, about that.
Then we got Mando.
Yep.
How you doing, Billy?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. How's my audio this time?
You sound okay. You're sounding all right.
The last time you did a show and I joined you, you were mentioning you could barely hear me. So,
well, my problem last time was I was getting a lot of like latency. And right now, actually, I got you bouncing off my wrong speaker. So let me fix that. Hold on 1 second.
well, that explains why I've got the headache now.
Yeah. Well, no, sometimes I've hopped over and my audio is a little quiet. Is my audio okay, or does it need to be adjusted?
No, your audio is fine. I'm just
okay.
I got to feed mine through my.
Yeah. Hey, careful when you bounce me off your speakers. That hurts.
Let me see if this works. Go ahead. Say something.
Something.
You're still coming through my. I don't know. My whole thing's. I think I need to redo my one computer that I usually stream on, because it's just I get too much. I don't know. I must have some kind of problem going on in the background, because I get like latency and skipping, and it just I can't seem to fix it. So,
well, Billy, have you gotten in good with Murphy yet?
yeah, well, I try not to let him kick my ass. So,
well, you should have hooked up with his sister back in high school.
Never was with a Murphy girl. I can't say I was with them.
I'm sorry, that was a terrible joke.
They're a little loose from what I understand.
Allegedly.
Yes. Oh, Magic Flute and Witchy Poo. Wasn't Witchy Poo? She was part of like that that really terrible Marty and Sid thing where they had like the fucking sea monster guy, Sigmund the sea monster, remember? And there was like
I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
You might be too young. I'm like right on the cusp where I was like little when that shit was out. So
well, yeah, Billy, I'll put you this way. I was probably 5 years old when my dad let me watch a movie from when he was a kid that you would probably remember, when Disney was still good. Puff the Magic Dragon.
Huh. Okay.
You might remember that one, but I doubt it.
I vaguely remember it. Vaguely. So, getting back on track. Sid and Marty Krofft. Yes, thank you, Tim. Sid and Marty Krofft. Yeah, they had all those weird fucking TV shows, HR Puffin stuff, and all that. All right, so getting back on track with El Salvador. So, this is what I'll give you just a little bit of the article, and we could discuss it a little bit. So, El Salvador's iron-fisted leader on Monday offered to jail Americans so President Donald Trump can outsource the U.S. prison system, an extraordinary step that was hailed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Let's see. They're saying there's virtually no precedent in contemporary times for this to take place.
I think that would be doable with illegal aliens that haven't yet come up on deportation capability, but I don't think that would work with citizens.
I don't think it would work with citizens either. But as I was saying in the beginning, like, what do we do with these people who have like killed Americans and committed heinous crimes, right? And then now we have to put them in jail, and now we have to house them and feed them and take care of them. That's a cost, right? That is we're incurring.
Well, I understand your point, and I understand your logic on that. However, if I remember correctly, there is a Supreme Court case a little over 2 decades old where the Supreme Court decided that an illegal alien living within the United States is not afforded the same constitutional rights as natural born or naturalized American citizens.
Yeah.
So if you have a non-resident illegally present in a nation, that could technically be seen as an enemy combatant of the people and or a I don't know the most polite way to say it, but somebody who can be charged with let's use the acronym of DT, if you guys know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like the Richard Reeds and the guys from the Boston Marathon event. You could technically, according to Supreme Court law, I mean, I'm no lawyer, but you could realistically, they pass go, they do not collect the $200, so to speak, and we just have a little extra fertilizer, if you all know what I mean.
Well, hang on. I've got a crazy idea here, and just bear with me on this. Donald Trump has been working very closely with America's modern rocket man on various projects. One of the projects that the rocket man is really keen on is lunar and Martian colonization.
Yeah.
I think in regards to certain individuals that are supporting this or these actions, we found the volunteers when they get found guilty.
Yeah, well,
there's no space here on Earth, unless we want to use Antarctica, that can be utilized for exile anymore.
Yeah, SC's he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Well, Mando, see, the problem is taking illegals to court would afford them constitutional rights.
I'm not talking about the illegals. I'm talking about the people that are encouraging them to come.
Well, there's actually a federal misdemeanor. I think it's like a $2,000 or $5,000 fine that you can actually start charging the people who support these people.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, and I think that should happen too. I think
Agreed.
These NGOs need to be held accountable. I mean, groups like the Red Cross are giving out maps. Here's the routes you take. Here's what they say.
I'm chuckling because if you overheard Cliff's show just now, we talked a lot about one of those agencies.
I bet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is let me read a little bit more because it's starting to talk about crackdown on migrants. So it says Rubio said that Bukele was also willing to take back Salvadorian citizens and nationals of other countries. So there's kind of like the idea that, okay, instead of us having to house these fuckers, these illegals for their crimes, now, we send them down to El Salvador. Pay them a little fee. There you go. I think it's a fucking wonderful idea, to be honest.
It's not a bad idea while the current government is in charge down there.
Correct. Now, what I really think would be an absolutely wonderful thing to do is put an executive order together, make it, U.S. policy, have Congress codify it. Any nation who allows their citizens to illegally relocate to the United States, we will deduct $100 million in the federal aid that we supply that nation with, along with putting a 25% tariff on any of the goods the United States buys.
I like that idea, Crusader, but there's one small problem. Some of these countries we don't really have any economic business with.
True. And that's why you put the caveat of the $100 million penalty, because how much money did we send to Pakistan? How much money have we sent to Afghanistan? How much money have we sent to Mexico and Colombia and Uruguay, Paraguay? How many of these other countries, in Haiti, how many of these nations have received untold billions of dollars?
Well, and the other thing I'm going to point out, Crusader, is with the agency we just got done raking over the coals over on Cliffside, more than likely going the way of the dodo or being put on a very, very major taxpayer diet.
Yeah.
What we would probably have to do is limit the diplomatic visas for their individuals coming in to deal with organizations such as the UN.
Oh yeah. If no matter who they are, you revoke their diplomatic papers. You do not let them come onto American soil. And let's say we get 10 Haitian migrants. That's $1 billion the U.S. does not put into foreign aid into Haiti. That adds up fast.
It sure does.
Yep.
And you want to see, and then not only that, but you saddle them with having to support their own country, number one, because you pull the funding away from them, and then you start putting a tariff on them. I mean, if Haiti had to pay a 25% tariff on anything it sent to the United States, along with $100 million penalty for every Haitian migrant that illegally enters the United States, how fast is their bill going to add up?
Oh, by the end of the week, they'd have something that they couldn't pay back.
Exactly.
Well, that was until these executive orders were put in place to stop this whole surge that was happening at the border. From what I'm hearing, it's completely dried
that has
up.
miraculously come to an end, hasn't it?
Yeah. That slowed down greatly.
Yeah, makes you wonder what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so this is I think a good idea that definitely should be explored, and I'm all for it. I'm going to throw the caveat in there. It's a good idea until the government changes. Well, I mean, look, even if the government does change, right? They're out of your country, right? And if they're like, oh, we're going to let them all free, it's like, well, you're letting all these criminals free in your own country, so good luck.
Right.
And again, Billy, I hate to do this when it's I agree it's a good idea, but South America has had a weird habit of being friendly for a little while and then all of a sudden not being all that
Yeah.
friendly.
Well, the other thing that I think would be a wonderful change is if you had I've seen a couple of cases where there have been home invasions with illegals, and some of the home invaders get the VIP treatment to the express self checkout, if you know what I mean. Any American citizen who defends their own property against an illegal alien should be exempt from any and all charges.
That could lead to a slippery slope, Crusader.
I could agree with that too, Mando. I think you could get people who I don't know, that I could see that being slippery.
Because
I agree with the sentiment that you're expressing,
Mhm.
Nate. But I can see how that would get abused by certain people of a more unstable nature.
Well, what I'm talking about is when you have a home invasion. Where I
Mhm.
live, there was a home invasion by some Venezuelan gang members not too long ago. The
Mhm.
homeowner was home. I live in a Castle Doctrine state. One of the Venezuelan migrants is no longer with us. The property owner assisted in that.
Oh, what a pity.
Yeah. Well, the homeowner is now facing potential criminal charges for use of a deadly weapon. Their home got invaded. They're in a Castle Doctrine state. They defended themselves with lethal force, and now they're facing charges.
Well, and now, Crusader, like I said, I can agree with what you're saying on one hand, but you've dealt with psychology much more than
I
I
know a
have.
little bit about it.
How hard would it be for somebody who is a little less than stable to put up something to imply bait and quote unquote accidentally have somebody get into their home?
Well, the probability of that occurring is very, very minimal, number one. Number two, it kind of helps rid our nation of illegals. So what's the problem?
Again, I don't disagree with you in theory.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out where this could go pear-shaped very easily.
Oh, yeah. I mean, some may perceive it that way, but once again, you already have someone who has repeatedly broken multiple laws.
Yeah.
And Essie is right. Moral ambiguity. That's pretty much what it falls under.
See, I'll be honest with you, Crusader. I'm kind of fond of the idea of sending bounty hunters and privateers after these people.
Yeah,
but
It's a great idea.
But that leads to the same problem. That leads to the same problem, though, that I just described with more mentally unstable members of the neighborhood.
Well,
okay, I like if I could just go
ahead. Go ahead.
So I like the idea that you have to be like a certified bounty hunter. I think was the bill that Mississippi put forward.
Yeah.
So at least there's some kind of criteria that you can't just you and your buddies just go out with shotguns and go round up illegals, which is awesome on the face. I love that. Yeah.
But Missouri's also looking at doing something very similar.
And see, I see that as a very it could be useful, but it could be a very slippery slope. Now, what I'm saying is in the United States, if you get a home invasion and you kind of assist somebody with the express checkout, so to speak, and the investigation's done, they look into it, they find out, oh, the invader is an illegal alien. Okay. You do not charge the property owner for defending themselves. You don't go after anything like that. You do the investigation to find out, is it a true home invasion? If it is, the property owner's cleared.
So Singletown brought up a point. So here's my take on it. He's saying why not? As far as why not just let anybody hunt illegals, which I believe is what he was saying. Why not to? I think the problem that can incur there is then everybody gets targeted who doesn't look like they belong, right? And
Yeah.
now you'll have innocent people who are going to get hurt,
Right.
which then at the end of the day, then it backfires on the idea that you're trying to do, because the sentiment then starts building that now it's a bad thing to go rounding these people up because now they're getting hurt and they're innocent, or some of them are innocent. And, I think
Right.
I think very much a controlled roundup is very much would be good. As law enforcement assisted by private security and private bounty hunters, I think is a great
licensed and
idea.
trained individuals.
Yeah, I think when it's just
Well,
open season, I think you're going to have a lot of problems.
Well, and if I remember right, don't licensed bounty hunters have to go through a certain number of hours of training each year to be refreshed on what they're allowed to do?
Probably,
They've-
I would assume.
I knew a dude who was a bounty hunter many years ago, and they have to do a federal and state licensing process. They have to be fingerprinted. They have to be bonded. They have to go through a bunch of training. And if I remember correctly, they have to go through a number of different, what they call continuing education courses, where they have to have so many credits throughout a year of continuing education that they have to meet that. If they don't meet that, then they lose their bounty hunting license.
I would have no problem with those individuals being turned loose to hunt these individuals down and bring them into custody.
Now, what I would really like to see, I mean, you're right you're right on that to a point. But what I would really like to see is if President Trump were to federalize the National Guard and the Air National Guard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because then the president would then take control and he could say, round up any and all illegal aliens, people who have overstayed their student visas, their work visas, anybody who has done this, you round them up. Anyone assisting these people in evading the federal laws, you have presidential authority to arrest them.
And you know what? That'd be a roundup that is completely free of glyphosate.
Well, what would happen is you have these little blowhard mayors and governors and people who want to sit there and talk tough in front of a camera. If they want to, and if you want to have a police chief or lieutenant or law enforcement officer that wants to stand up and stop the National Guard from detaining an individual, they're going to open up a world of hurt, because every single one of those people who do it, it's a federal misdemeanor, and they're going to get slapped with federal charges, which means any public sector job they ever attempt to hold or any state licensed position they intend to hold, they'll never hold those jobs ever again.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on any of that.
And I think there'll be a far safer avenue to do it versus putting bounty hunters out there. I would rather nationalize and federalize the National Guard.
The only problem with that is you'd run into posse comitatus.
Possibly.
Because that's how in the first Trump term, the Democrats managed to stop Trump putting armed National Guardsmen on the southern border.
Well, if you are using the state guard you wouldn't be deploying the Minnesota Guard to Texas. You'd keep the Minnesota Guard in Minnesota. The Minnesota Air National Guard would transport from Minnesota to, I don't know, Fort Benning or wherever as a checkpoint. You double check and verify.
I'm just passing along what the historical precedent was and what I think they're avoiding this time.
Well, yes, but you could get around that for the simple fact of with the deployment with the federalization of the National Guard, using their deployment as them staying home, that could be a loophole. I'd have to look into it a little more.
Riggs actually brings up a really fun point.
Yeah.
Where apparently ICE has taken about 30 cells in his local jail.
So here's a question. Here's a question. Just let me see what people think in the chat along with you guys. So say, for example, you have someone in your neighborhood that you know is illegal, but they're not really causing any trouble, right? And they're like a family or whatever, not really causing any trouble, just existing there. Do you do anything about it? Do you call anybody on them? Because they're probably known. They might be known to, the authorities.
Yeah.
Technically, they did break the law.
Yes.
Yes. Well, okay. Just look, cursory brief review of the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. It states that people who are mobilized to protect the public property and public places, they're also referred to as the Posse Comitatus Act in the United States federal law, limits the use of military in domestic law enforcement. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What you are doing is, what you would be doing is you would be actually using the state guard, the air guard of each individual state in transportation. If you have a county sheriff going out and arresting illegals, verifying their illegals, that county sheriff hands them over to a colonel in the state guard, who then transports them to the local Air National Guard base and transports it from that Air National Guard base to a federal military installation. You're not actually technically using the military in domestic law enforcement. You're using the military for transportation.
All I'm doing is pointing out what happened last time Trump tried to do that. And if anything, Trump has learned from previous errors and is making sure he doesn't step in the same minefields.
Yeah. But once again, he would be using the state, federalizing the state guard, and you can label it training exercises in transportation, training exercises in logistics. You can use it a lot of different ways in training, and it's technically not law enforcement if they're just transporting.
I see where you're going, Crusader. Like I said, I remember 4 years ago when he was doing this previously, and he got slapped down for it. I think he's learned from that how to actually deal with these issues.
So here's the question. How deep do you think they're going to go with this? Do you think they're going to go down? All right, because right now they're starting with the worst of the worst, allegedly, right? But they're leaving it, if you listen to the language they're using it, they're leaving it very open.
Yeah, they are.
And they're saying Holden, I think that's his name, right? Holden.
Yeah.
Holman is basically, he's saying that you cross the border, you committed a crime, just like Broken Pine here is saying. You entered the USA illegally, you committed a crime. It's the basic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think they're going to go down, like all the way down to, families and
I think eventually they will. Well, here's why I say that. Holman himself has straight up told these sanctuary cities that when ICE individuals go into an apartment to bring into custody individuals that are here illegally, that have engaged in violence, and they find somebody who also is illegal, but they haven't engaged in violence, they're taking them too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because they did violate the
Yeah.
law.
Right. And I see no problem if you are an illegal harboring other illegals. I see no problem. I mean, what they're going to do is they're going to eventually alienate the law-breaking illegals from the law-abiding illegals, and they're not going to start harboring these people because they're going to see that they have a risk of being deported themselves. And it's a very smart tactic to do that. You're ostracizing them within a culture and a community.
Well, I mean, I'm seeing lots of videos where, places are ghost towns. Work sites are ghost towns.
Oh yeah.
City streets are ghost towns. They're all hiding, right? But eventually you're not going to be able to hide anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
I
like
know. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I know of 2 small towns where within 4 hours of me, where there's a furniture manufacturer that had an ice bust maybe a week ago now, and they detained almost 300 illegals at work in this furniture factory.
Mhm.
That entire factory, that was a third of their staff,
Right.
and
But that's
they've
taking
come back again and again.
Yeah, but that's like what Broken Pine is saying. That's taking jobs from potential US citizens, right?
Correct.
So, and then people could say, oh, well, your stuff is cheap because we're using cheap labor. And it's like, well,
Mhm.
number one, that's morally wrong, really.
Right.
But
Right.
if you build up, like, just say tomorrow you got rid of all the illegals, right? And now you're going to need, not only are you going to need people to fill those spots, right? So now you're going to decrease the unemployment, right?
Right.
You're also going to make housing cheaper because there's not going to be such a crush of nobody having housing because you have however many illegals you got in this country. They're taking up housing, right? That's part of the reason why housing is so damn fucking expensive. It's because,
Well, hey, Billy, I'm gonna point something else out real quick. You touched on this early on with that. It will do a lot to alleviate the downward pressure on pretty much everyone's wages.
Yeah, it will.
I-
It'll reduce the number of workers.
The job you do,
Yes.
Billy, if you were doing it back in the 1980s, would you be making proportionately about the same amount, or would you be making proportionally more, taking inflation into consideration?
I'd be making proportionally the same in and around. I'm very much in the same not identical field as my father, but close enough. And I'd say you're both.
Okay,
both.
let me rephrase the question. Would your lifestyle be more, less, or equally comfortable in the 1980s as opposed to now?
It would be, I mean, for me, it would probably be about the same. It would be very similar. I don't see it.
Okay, good. Because a lot of these folks who cannot get these lower income jobs, these lower skilled jobs, like a lot of high school students,
Yeah.
I think they would actually jump at that chance just to get a little bit of what's essentially pocket money nowadays.
Well, the problem, okay, I'm not going to use myself as an example. Let's take.
Yeah, that was a bad choice.
No, that's
on my
okay.
end.
Let's take, what's say going on in the fast food industry, right? These people want
Mhm.
$15, $20 an hour. Like that's not sustainable, number one.
No.
And to me, that's you are making a job that really isn't worth that kind of money into something that's like, those jobs are going to go away, right? There should be an economic ladder that you should climb.
And in California, those jobs are going
Well,
away.
see, that's the problem, right? Because there's only so many jobs, and if you have all these illegals here taking a chunk of those jobs, right? Now you're pretty much going to have a class of people who are just only going to be able to get a job in the low end, right? As far as like fast food and, working at Walmart and these kind of things, right? And there's no ladder really to go up. So that's why they want $15, $20 an hour, because there's no economic mobility upwards for them.
Yeah, it's looking for a survivable wage on a job that's supposed to be something for college students to work through while they're going through college, or high school students to work through while they're finishing high school.
Now, I've worked in a couple of specialized fields, and I put myself through college working for a plumber, and I saw a lot of guys, not specifically in plumbing, but in carpentry and electrical and things like that, that dudes didn't speak a word of English. They were quote unquote contractors for, they were subcontractors for a contractor, and you would have best way to describe it, everybody's seen those roofing crews. They roll in blaring the Mexican music. You get like 60 of these guys on the roof of a house. They rip it all off. They re-roof the whole place, and they're gone barely after lunch.
Yeah.
I got a buddy. He's been a roofer for 25 years. He's really good at it. Started roofing companies and sold them off. But he said that the way the market has gotten is these guys have infiltrated. They come in, they drive the prices down, they get paid in cash, they're in and out of town in 30 to 60 days, and they just roam the country, and they just go all over and just start collecting piles and piles and piles of cash. He said when he started roofing in the late 90s, and he said roofers were paid about 20 to 30 bucks an hour in the 90s. Now they're still paid $20 to $30 an hour,
right,
as a roofer, because you have these roofing companies that'll come in and they will poach the customers. When I worked for a plumber, you had these guys doing the same thing. They didn't know the building codes, they didn't know the plumbing codes. They would come in and just royally mess something up, get paid, take the money and run. And then you'd have to get the master plumber I worked for, who would bring in, someone that's been trained like me as a subcontractor or as an employee that worked for him. And we have to go in and redo it. And then the customer is the one that takes it in the shorts at the end of the day. So getting rid of some of these workers would be a great thing. But then a lot of the thing is you have to penalize the employers, like some of these furniture companies or some of these truss manufacturing companies or some of these farms where they bring in illegals to do a job and deliberately drive the price down because, hey, either you take the job for 10 bucks an hour, I'm going to report you to ICE. Hey, you do this for $8 an hour, I'm going to report you. And they get away with that. And these businesses need to be penalized for actually employing those people. But what you need to do is, for every illegal caught on the property or working for the employer, that employer loses all tax write-off capabilities for a year per illegal caught.
Okay, Crusader, that actually leads to an interesting question. Looking specifically at contracting for construction, plumbing, etc., would it be the contractor that you would find in that situation, or would it be the person that did the initial contract? Because everyone does their contract based on a bidding process, do they not?
Most of the time. Go ahead.
So I think it would be on the contractor, right? Because he's basically the director of the show.
Yes.
So
let's.
He's the manager.
We'll use this as an example. Let's say Billy owns a house. I'm a general contractor. He approaches me to have a bathroom remodel done or a kitchen remodel done. I then go out and find a group of Mexican dudes at Home Depot. We've all seen them. I'm not going to candy coat it. to come in, rip
Yeah.
apart the kitchen. I pay all these guys as contractors. Let's say Billy's paying me $50,000 to redo a kitchen. I turn around, I hire a couple of day laborers that are illegal aliens. I pay these guys $200 a day to rip out this kitchen and put a new one in. And let's say someone reports suspicious unpermitted work being done in a house. The building inspector comes in, he talks to one of the guys. They don't speak English. He calls the county sheriff, who comes in, looks for papers. They're all illegals. They'll go to Billy and say, hey, why do you have 10 dudes that are illegal aliens working on your house? And Billy will be like, oh, wow, I didn't know. I hired this guy to do the work for me. I didn't know he was doing this. Billy would then be in the clear. Then they would come after me as the contractor for employing illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Okay, and bear in mind, I wasn't trying to be argumentative.
No.
I was literally asking that question because there's always been a gray area to me as to who is actually.
I'm not agitated. I mean, this isn't an argument at all in my perspective and opinion. All I'm stating is this is kind of how the system works.
Okay.
And this is how these things happen: is you have these big contractors. They take a job for 50 grand. They turn around, they pay these guys peanuts. And then these guys flee town. The contractor makes the big money. The homeowner gets shafted because nothing's done to code. And they have problems. They go back to the contractor, and the contractor never answers the phone, never goes back, they just take the money and run. That's how it works.
Well, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the housing market. So there is a lot of videos of people who have bought houses, new builds, and they're absolute shit.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that.
Yeah.
And what gets me is for some reason there's a thought in this, at least on the left, that if you're from like a different country, you have the same skill and educational level and whatnot as somebody who's grown up here, right? And I just, time after time, I've seen that been proven untrue in so many ways when it comes to their skill, their knowledge. Mm-hmm. I mean, yes, you're going to have exceptions here and there, but overall,
yeah.
I mean, I see it directly at my job. There's a guy, he's from a different country that I work with closely. He just doesn't, and I mean, he's like college educated to like the top of his level in the country he's from.
Right.
And it's just not like to the level,
Not to the same level that we're used to.
No. And believe me, our education system here is fucking horrible. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think they were saying we're ranked 40 out of 40, and they want to do away with the Department of Education, which I have no problem with. Leave it to the states to handle. But yeah.
Well, it wasn't a cabinet level position until under Jimmy Carter, and there needs to be some oversight of the Department of Education to where you have an actual national standard, because taking away that national standard is what's put us where we are education wise. I'm sorry, but when I was in college, I had to actually tutor some classmates that were struggling to read.
I kind of had to do a similar thing. And that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Broken Pine really, he says it very well. Hire the third world, expect third world results.
He's not wrong.
Marx's dad says
Battle Dwarf says on a regular basis too.
Yeah. Marx's dad says superior skilled labor is a myth. I just don't see it. So you clear out all these people, and now we can bring. And here's another thing. Speaking of education, this is something that needs to happen. We need to stop pushing all of our school children towards just clicking away on a computer all day, or or being
Mhm.
a fucking influencer, right?
Right.
The trades are suffering so badly right now because everybody wants to be a fucking influencer or a fucking
Mhm.
keyboard warrior, right? Because they
Oh,
want
yeah.
to make $1 billion, but that happens to so few people.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
Billy. I'm going to use myself as an example here. When I left the army a couple years back, at least left active duty, I knew I needed to go into some kind of field that I would be one interested in, and two would not be terribly hard because at 40-ish and leaving several years of the army, I knew my body was going to start breaking down. So I got a degree in drafting and design. If I was younger and knew that I was going to last longer, I probably would have looked at welding or electrical or plumbing or one of those other quote unquote skilled trades. And I don't see a lot of high school guys, and I'm saying guys specifically because physically we're more able to handle these jobs. No offense, ladies, but it's the fact.
Right.
And I don't see a lot of them even looking at it. Yeah, there's a few going into mechanics, there's a few going into other automotive type jobs, but you don't see a lot of high school age dudes going into these other trades, even though they can make bank
Yeah, but you
after a
see,
while.
okay, it's not promoted in the schools. What they promote in the schools is, I mean, you've seen over the last few years, especially, they're promoting gender bullshit and learning about
Yeah.
fucking sex theory and can you be a woman
Hey,
and
Billy,
yeah.
Billy, you're not going to get a disagreement out of me on that. I'm just pointing this out because we have got a major problem in this country when it comes to education in general.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
Sean says it. This is why he says it exactly as I'm trying to convey it. The schools need to stop making curriculum to just go into college, right? Like when I was growing up, we had trades that, as part of the curriculum, that was just,
Mhm.
it was actually
Yeah.
mandatory for us to take different. I think they called them electives.
Yeah, wood shop,
Mhm.
I took every fucking one
auto
of them.
shop,
I
similar.
took
Yeah.
electronic engineering. I took woodworking. I took metal forming. I took
Mhm. Yep.
mechanics. I took
Yep.
drafting.
Yep.
I took every fucking elective that you could possibly take. And you just
Yeah.
do like one
Yeah,
every, semester. I loved
That's
it.
what I did too.
yeah,
Loved
I
it.
made it I made it a point to take a semester of each of those when I was in high school. Just that way I could make sure I had something well-rounded and could decide what I really liked.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
Well,
they don't even teach kids how to balance their bank book or their checkbook, I should say,
no.
or any of that.
No, they don't teach any of that anymore. When I was in high school,
Well,
in the last century, yeah, I'm old, I'll admit it. I took metallurgy, metal shop, wood shop, mechanics, drafting. I took all of it. I even took cooking classes in high school. Why? I was the only guy in there, and as a teenage guy, we all know how hungry teenage guys are. I was able to eat everything. I was like the best class in the world. I got credit. I got to eat, and I was surrounded by women the entire time. It was awesome. And I learned a few things. But when I went to college, my degree is in neurocognitive psychology, and my minor's in genetics. So I was fast tracking myself into research. And I still, even though everyone talks about like the underwater basket weaving electives and all the other crazy stupid stuff. I didn't do that. I maxed out on the science. I maxed out on the math. I maxed out linguistics. You name it, I took it. I maxed out everything. I didn't take in probably the easiest elective I took was applied linguistics in college. That was my easiest elective. like the lowest level entry to get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I took neuropharmacology and
See-
neurochemistry as an elective.
See,
Yeah.
Crusader, when I graduated high school in 2000
Okay.
from a little podunk town that had approximately 60 people in the graduating
Okay.
class. I made it a point to take one quote unquote fun class every semester, just so that way I would have at least a 90-minute block that I could use to mentally reset myself each day.
Yeah.
Because I knew if I was just taking the stuff that I could use to focus on college or focus on a trade, it would drive me absolutely nuts. And a lot of people load up on the fun stuff, but they don't bother doing the stuff that'll actually give them a usable skill.
Right.
Real quick.
And those are the ones I have.
So I
issues
just want
with.
to address Riggs Jr. So he was being a professional mechanic and whatnot. And I totally understand your gripes, having been in the automotive industry for I don't even know how many years now. Let me see. Let me do the math. 30 seriously, 35 years I've been in professionally, longer non-professionally. So yeah, it's tough, but if you can make the jump to your own shop, so not having to worry about fucking service writers and making book time and all that crap. If you could do your own shop, and especially if you do a specialized shop, right? So say you're the, I don't know, pick a brand, you're the Volkswagen specialist, right?
Yeah. You're the non-dealer specialist.
Right. People come to you who are in those particular vehicles. If you have a name that people know and you only specialize in that one brand per se, I know a lot of guys who have done that, who have made that jump, and they are fucking they don't know what to do with themselves because they're making so much goddamn money, number one, and they're so goddamn busy.
Yeah.
Like they're constantly busy. Anyway, that's just a
Billy. In the region where I'm at, what people do is they specialize, but not in brands, but in different subcomponents of vehicles.
Yeah.
Here in my home city, when my car's radio wasn't on the fritz, it's one of these things where every time I'd be on the commute to work or from work, I would hear at least 2 or 3 different ads for a radiator company, a brake company, and a bodywork company. And those guys, while they probably don't make as much as the folks that specialize on certain brands, they also make bank because they literally are just focused on one subsection of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And they get really good.
Well, let me put this out there too. If anybody's considering getting into, because we're in an interesting time right now because Trump is wanting to basically tariff China out of existence as far as what we use them for, right?
Right.
Now, if you're a car guy and have been doing car shit for as long as me, you'll remember a very horrible time during I would say the 1990s, where if you were into an old car, you had very limited choices of parts. Usually you had to either get the new old stock if you could find it, if it wasn't dried up at that point, or rebuild what you had. There wasn't the repop market like there is now, because the repop market has really built up because of China, right? Because all that stuff's getting made in China. But if we are going to start bringing that stuff back here, I mean, that's a huge fucking industry. And that's just one industry. I mean, think about all the different things now being made in China where if we're going to tariff the shit out of them, right, it's going to become more economic for us to bring it back over here, which means we're going to need people who know how to start up a factory, who know how to run production lines, who know how to do fucking CAD and design and all the things that go into manufacturing. I think
and they're also going to have to be able to handle all the current industrial regulations that we have.
well,
So you're going to have people who know how to get the stuff up to the necessary codes.
which I think that they're going to, it's my belief that Trump's going to roll back some of these ridiculous, some of the codes are ridiculous. I get that you should definitely have codes. I'll give you a quick side story. There used to be a joke that in Tarrytown, New York, they used to have a GM plant, and it was right on the Hudson River, and you could tell what color cars they were building that day by the color of what the Hudson River was, because they were just dumping the leftover paint into the river, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely need regulation to prevent, a complete disaster of the environment, right? But I think some of the regulation definitely needs to get rolled back, and then you bring back manufacturing.
I agree.
Well, okay, Billy, I'm going to ask a real crazy question, and you're probably the most qualified person on this panel to answer it. When a car gets sent to a junkyard, assuming it hasn't been burned out or flooded, what percentage of the guts of that vehicle can be reused?
The majority.
Yeah.
The majority of it.
80-90%.
Now,
so but there's two problems. Number one, there's a lack of people who know how to work on cars anymore, right? So junkyards have, and plus with the environmental shit, junkyards have really been disappearing all across the country, right?
Yeah.
And but as far as a car, they break it down they break it way down, and then whatever's left, they send through the shredder, and they separate out the metal from the cloth and all that. So everything's usable from a car. Once
I think you kind of get where I'm going with this line of questions. Environmentally speaking, which is better, the junkyard that we've known for years, or when we take a car that is literally ready to die, we take it into the nearest depot, they strip all the parts that can be used, they probably get rid of the fiberglass body, because to my knowledge that can't be recycled, and then they melt down everything else that they can and make brand new steel bars out of it.
Well, usually what happens is that the car goes through a shredder. They literally think of it as a big paper shredder, but for a car.
Yeah, I've seen those in use.
Yeah.
No, it's just something that I've been thinking about, because with the job I do at my company, I'm regularly having to look at different regulations from literally across the planet for different environmental factors. And I started thinking one day, why on earth is it that we haven't actually been doing all of this? The Pontiac Sunfire that I used to drive, I'm sure is rusting out in some junk pit somewhere over by Manhattan.
No,
Kansas.
it's probably been shredded at this point.
Yeah, more than likely it's been shredded.
Yeah.
That would probably be better then.
Well,
mainly because I really don't want to think about that thing. I loved that car, even though it was a piece of shit. I don't want to think about it just moldering.
Yeah.
Well,
so usually a car will last, if it's a pick, like a U-Pick junkyard, it'll last about a month before it's like there's nothing really good left to pick, and then they just shred it, whatever's left.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back in my youth for fun, I used to work on cars with friends and rebuilt plenty in my past, some pretty hard to find vehicles, and it's fun. It's definitely something I enjoy. One of the guys, I think he was like 10-15 years older than me when I was in high school, he was that one dude that always worked on, just like the shade tree mechanic, so to speak, would always work on things. He's the dude you can drop off a transmission. He's like, all right, I'll work on it, swing by tomorrow morning, it'll be done. Like, he knew transmissions like the back of his hand. So what he did is he kept working in other shops, and he went and opened his own shop. And about 5 or 6 years ago, if you got him anything pre-2000, he could work on it. But with the subscription services for all these for these computer programs and all these different things, you have to have a subscription service in order to access the diagnostic data on these cars, in order to actually understand what's going on in them, to where he said it was no longer profitable because there was a couple of software companies where he was spending thousands of dollars a month to stay up to date on data.
And that nonsense needs to die.
Well,
Yeah.
that's so the reason they do that, the manufacturer is trying to keep the cars in their shop, and that's one of the ways they attempt to do that. It's like a proprietary
Well,
thing.
I know a couple of states have started basically telling the manufacturers that they can't do that anymore.
Right now, I believe it's only Massachusetts.
Yeah, that was a big landmark case.
And I thought Minnesota also told them that, but
They're looking into it.
maybe I'm thinking of the John Deere thing.
Yeah. Well, it all depends, I think in many ways it's a good thing. In some ways it's a bad thing because so let's just say, for example, you get a car worked on at some whatever shop, and they do something wrong, and then the car gets into an accident. Usually the people will then sue the manufacturer as opposed to the shop. So it's another way for manufacturers to try to keep cars in their shop so they can somewhat guarantee the work without having to face lawsuits.
Yeah. Well, I had a buddy of mine that worked for, he was the head service writer, and I remember talking to him, and they had a brand new car. It was barely 6 months old. The person took it to some quickie oil change place, and they double gasketed the oil filter.
Oopsie.
Ooh.
The motor barely had 6,000 miles on it and seized. And the car owner, and they were going back at the dealership, and they filed a warranty claim, this, that, and the other thing. And I remember my buddy telling me the day the factory was delivering a brand new engine in a crate. And I'm like, what's that cost? He's like, it's like 80 grand. I'm like, what? And I remember going to his office. I remember walking in, and here it is, this big plastic crate. It's all nestled in and padded in, and quite literally everything was there. All the hoses were sitting on top of it and inside this cradle, and everything was all they pretty much had to do was disconnect the hoses, the lines, drain everything out of it, take a cherry picker, pick it, swing it up and out, slide the entire, connect the new one in, connect the transmission. I'm like, 80 grand? And he's like,
Well,
like,
so the thing
that's
about
not-
that too is that's screwing over the mechanic, because it used to be, well, and it still is to most cases. You get an engine, it's basically stripped down. It's like a short block, they call it. And you got to just change everything over. But if you got something that has hoses and everything connected to it, you're cutting down on that labor time of pulling it out and putting it in. So
yeah, they had quite literally everything. It already had plugs in it. It already had the fuel injection system boxed up and set off to the side. There was on top of the intake, there was a cherry picker bracket where you can actually just pick it up on the top of the intake, like the old we used to do with the old motors. Like everything was all set for him. And he's like, yeah, he's like, they want my guy to get this out of the shop in a day. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He's like, nope. He said it's a factory warranty job, and they want this thing out of here because they don't want to pay. I think the pay for the guy was like 7.5 hours to do the swap.
Yeah.
That sounds about like what I've heard from people who do that on a regular basis.
I mean, I've done engine swaps on old Chevys, old Fords, old Chryslers. I mean, Billy, you'll laugh at this. Many years ago, me and a couple of buddies, we put an Oldsmobile 425 Rocket in a 93 Jeep Wrangler.
I'm not a car guy, but that doesn't sound good.
Oldsmobiles were always kind of a funny engine to work on.
Oh yeah. They're finicky to work on, to say the least. But shoehorning that motor into that little Wrangler was a nightmare. But yeah, I mean, you need to have skilled people do stuff like that. And unfortunately, kids nowadays don't. Parents are pushing the kids out and away from that, because the people that are parents now are the ones that were the original coders. Go to college, get a degree, don't work with your hands, use your mind. And that's been polluted to get your influencers. And now, dude, even plumbing, I got approached by a recruiter. Hey, we saw your resume. We see you have 10 years in plumbing. Do you want to come and be a maintenance guy at a office building? I'm like, what are you going to offer me? And they're like, well, we'll start you at, $60 or $70 an hour. By the end of the year, you'll be close to $100 an hour. I'm like, what? They're like, you got to be kidding me, to be a maintenance guy in a building? And it's like, then they're like, we can't find anyone that can do it.
Yeah. And that job can be all over the place, and you have to have a very varied skill level. It's almost like being a project manager. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty much what it was, a building maintenance, like a building manager. Like, you had to know all the different contractors, you had to know the codes, you had to know the people in the industry, because you were a project manager for the building.
Yeah.
That would be infuriating.
Oh yeah.
All right. So our next, we've gotten way into
the weeds.
We've only done one article so far.
No
worries,
Billy.
That's fine. No, it's good. So our next article, it talks about Alaska FBI is rounding up illegals. Anchorage school superintendent Bryant is ready to rumble. So apparently in Alaska, this was sent by George. Sean sent this over. So the Anchorage FBI says it's cooperating with other federal agencies to round up illegal aliens in Alaska. Who would have thought that you'd have illegals up there in Alaska? But I guess they're everywhere, right? See now, and that's like kind of concerning as far as, these people who disappeared from the cities and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta wonder, like, now are they pushing out into like the country and into neighborhoods near you because they're scared to be in the cities?
Well, Billy, it's just like in medical. If you have a cancer, it'll start out more than likely in the organ or organ tissue that it is named for. But once it hits a certain point, a critical mass, so to speak, it'll start going out wherever it darn well pleases to get more nutrients and get more territory, essentially. When it comes to illegal immigration, it's more or less the same thing.
Yeah, so I worry that, now you're going to have a bunch of illegals in the sorry, I was just sharing my Gilded there. Sean, I just sent you the link in Gilded. Yeah, so I just worry that they're going to now end up all over the place as opposed to just in the cities. Let me see here.
In some places, they already are.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the Biden admin has been sending them everywhere, right? They've been flying them all over the country in planes in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to say this, but part of that is also at the feet of Texas and Florida because they shipped them up to those northern cities that wanted sanctuary status.
Well, I gotta wonder what's going to happen with that whole sanctuary city thing because, I mean,
Those have been defunded by the current AG as of earlier
they're being
today.
what? Well, as they
Defunded.
should. And I think this
And
whole sanctuary city thing needs to disappear. I think the whole sanctuary bullshit it's against the sovereignty of our nation. I really don't understand how like it can even be a thing. Like, how is that a thing? How can that be legal? Somebody explain that to me. Anyone, please. Anyone.
Well, it's real. I mean, technically transporting any individual without their consent technically qualifies as human trafficking. So technically you could go after those governors who sent people to Massachusetts or Chicago or California. Technically anyone who does that, you could go after them for that.
Well, were they already in the custody of said governors or of their states?
yeah, they were basically given an option of where they wanted to go.
Oh, and without doing any coordination with the
Correct.
receiving state.
Correct.
Yeah, because what they would do is they would randomly choose a bus station. Because I don't think they sent them by plane. I think they sent them by bus to these different locations.
That's usually what they do with those. Now, with that being said, a executive or the cadaver and kid sniffer, every time he put a plane full of individuals and flew them to different locations and released them, technically every individual can count as a case of human trafficking. Every time he sent a child, that can qualify as a case of child trafficking. And also the pilots, the co-pilots, the navigators, the crew chiefs, all of those individuals can technically be charged with human trafficking.
Yeah, because you don't have to traffic a citizen in order to be applicable for charges. You could be a foreigner. Or you could go to a foreign country, traffic, come back, and be tried within the United States for engaging in activities that, whether legal or not in a foreign country, it's illegal here, and you're an American citizen subject to our jurisdiction, and this is not allowed.
You make a good point, but what I'm saying is, if you are an Air Force pilot or co-pilot flying a commercial grade aircraft, let's say you have 200 people on board, you receive an order from your commanding officer. The commander of your air wing says, you fly this plane to this city and you're done. Well, your commanding officer, the pilot, the co-pilot, the crew chief, even though you were quote unquote following an order from the DOD, the director of the DOD, the deputy director, everyone down that line can technically be charged in a world court for human trafficking.
Yeah, what is it? I was following orders is not protected. It's not a protected response.
Someone tried that a few years back and it didn't work.
It's every U.S. military serviceman's obligation it is their obligation to willfully disobey an illegal order.
Correct.
It is their legal obligation.
Yep, it's an unlawful order. And I mean,
head of command wants to get pissy about it. You know what? Inspector generals love going after officers.
Right?
They love it more because they're bigger fish, and enlisted people, hey, we're gonna fuck up one way or another. Sometimes it's colossal. Usually it's handled at the company battalion level.
Yeah, but
occasionally brigade if you really do a big enough screw up.
But basically speaking, when you had Air Force pilots and co-pilots flying people from Texas to California, technically those pilots those air traffic controllers, those ground crews can technically be charged, minor level. The lower down the food chain you get, the lower the charges will be, but you can get them for technically human trafficking, and you can charge the cadaver and kid sniffer with every single count of human trafficking in a world court. You could realistically do that.
Did Biden pardon himself on accident?
Probably.
I don't think Biden was actually able to pardon himself.
That's another quandary.
That'd be interesting. I don't think anybody's tried that, because Nixon would have been a good example, but he
Nixon
had a drug deal with Ford about that.
Well, Nixon had a few different drug deals going.
Few?
He had a lot of federal agencies by the balls. He just wasn't. He wasn't. He thought he was crafty and guile enough. He got a lesson in how good our intelligence agencies are capable of. Today, they're not very capable, but
Nixon was more paranoid than he was intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So real quick,
for good reason.
Marx is Dead says retrofit older cruise ships as prison barges and mass deport hundreds at a time. Well, you can actually mass deport thousands at a time on a big old cruise ship. But is it bad?
I like.
But is it bad of me? The other day I saw a video where they caught a boat off San Diego with a bunch of illegals. I'm like, couldn't they just like torpedo that?
Dude,
okay.
That's your intrusive thoughts, right?
That's why I know. That's why I know we're friends.
Really, I'm just going to point out, technically speaking, that goes into a different grade of law called law of the sea.
Right?
Well, in international waters is a different story.
Well, what I was going to say is, if that ship had any kind of defect that would make it unseaworthy, you're essentially mandated to render aid. Now, that aid does not mean you're mandated to bring it to the port it was going to.
Right.
You can render that thing seaworthy and tow it right back to where it came from.
Technically, you're right.
Yeah.
Now, where it gets into a kind of a weird gray area is if they're legitimate asylum seekers, which we all know how weird that's been the last couple of decades.
1 in 1,000 roughly.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah.
But all I'm doing is pointing this out. I'm not trying to start an argument or anything else.
Well, I'm just going to wrap up. Go ahead. And now I'll wrap up this.
And
real quick.
And this is all theoretical, as seen in Minecraft. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay, so I was just going to wrap it up by saying, it's kind of crazy that you have people who are burning our flag who supposedly want to be here, right? But waving around their flag of the country that they left and that supposedly treats them terribly. That just does not make sense to me.
Do you think the immigrants who came here legally and went through the painful process, are they waving their former country flags?
Not at all. No. So going back to that coworker of mine who just isn't quite up on the same level, he had to spend a lot of money to get here, and he's kind of pissed about it because he's like, I had to wait all this time. I did it the right way. Like he had to wait like something like 10 years, I think. He had to take the test. He had to it was like a big deal. And he's like, these fucking people are just like walking right in here like they own the fucking place. It's kind of funny.
I see. We're talking about illegals again, huh?
We're just wrapping up on that conversation. How are you tonight, Outlaw?
Pretty good. How about you guys?
Live the dream.
I'm good. Living the dream.
I am chaos and confusion, aka another Wednesday.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, are you guys ready for the next topic? Random topic I pulled up.
Oh yeah.
As supplied by Sean. And real quick, I just want to say, Gendai, thanks for sending the video, but I can't play video on the stream tonight because of my audio issue that I'm working with 2 computers. So basically, you're seeing the screen from my one computer that I'm running like the video on, and you're hearing me from a different computer. And I can't run the video on the one that you're hearing me from. So not to get too technical. We're kind of just patching it together here tonight. All right, so let's see. We got Trump signs order that will ban transgender athletes from women's sports.
Billy, with no disrespect intended, you and Cliff really should have
Oh,
Yeah.
are we talking the same stuff?
Same stuff. Yep.
That's all right. We're getting each of our own takes on these things, right?
I mean,
Well, the sad thing is, you have half of the panel from Cliff's show on with you
oh
tonight.
shit! Did he stream tonight? Fuck!
Yep, he did.
Damn it!
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, this is like, it's like common sense. So, I got asked the question. So, all these guys, men who obtained, say, championships and trophies and legs up with scholarships and all these freebies because they went in and they trounced the women in all their sports, right?
Mhm.
Now, I imagine they're going to be stripped of all this nonsense, right?
I would hope
so.
Yeah, I would hope so, but I don't know for certain.
Yeah.
See, if there was any justice in regards to this, they would be stripped of any ranks, titles, and awards that they received, and it would be handed over to the first runner or to the runner-up of whatever it is, and everyone would just get a bump up in the standings. Any world records would immediately be null and void, and essentially they would be erased with just a footnote stating that XYZ individual originally cheated with this time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So remember that guy who was doing the swimming?
Leah Thomas.
Oh God.
I don't think his name was Liam.
No, not him, but
Oh,
his
God.
female name. I can only remember the female name because that's what they put in the news over and over and over.
Oh,
It's like Bill or something.
what's his name?
Have a good night, Slick.
I always refer to the woman that he cheated against. I don't give him the time of day.
Yeah.
I like Mark's is dead. There goes the WNBA shot at gaining an audience. That's comment of the night. Right?
You know what? That's really funny. I don't recall seeing any in the WNBA. I know everybody brings up Griner, but
not yet. But I'm sure they were going to work their way.
Yeah.
Hang on, Billy. I know you're also a movie buff, specifically
Sure.
older ones, so this might be something you remember. We could always bring back the East German women's soccer team from the 1980s. You know the movie I'm referencing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Leah
Oh, that one's a classic.
sounds like Blaze is on a shit and tear job. Yeah, I mean, it's just to me it's like common sense, and I don't know why they kept pushing it for the last number of years. Like, somebody help me try to make sense of that. Like, why why was there such a push with this?
Billy, when certain people want to win so badly but they don't have the skill to do so, they will manipulate everyone else so that way they can get an advantage. And if that manipulation takes the form of somebody lying on a document, they're going to do it. We see it all the time in Congress.
And look,
if it ain't cheating, ain't trying. But there needs to be fairness.
Absolutely. And I completely understand a subpar male seeing an opportunity to then become super champion, right? I get the appeal. You know, I don't agree with it, but I understand why they're doing it. But then why is there the support and the push for it? Like, why?
All right.
Because,
That's easy to break down.
Because the certain
hit me up.
Go ahead, Mando.
I was going to say, because the certain marginalized group that thinks that they're getting ahead is thinking, oh, we're finally getting some representation. Yeah, this woman, in air quotes, is one of us. When truth be told, the individual doing it is just a selfish prig who can't get anywhere on his own merits.
Yeah, the idols who they are saying are the representation, they're not good examples. They don't highlight good examples. They highlight people who cheated to get to where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you guys are kind of making close to the same points. The reason there was a big push for social acceptance on this, did you all notice over the past 20 years or so, there have been, they went from the Born This Way to a few other ways to describing certain communities a specific way to push more of a social acceptance of this under the, well, they're more likely to use the self-checkout express. They're doing this. They were trying to do more of a confirmation to, you know, preserve life, so to speak. And then what came out of that is you had pharmaceutical companies that are producing patients for life by putting people through these. Your pharmaceutical entities were then funding campaigns because they were noticing an increase in profits, because the more patients for life they gained, the more profits they gained, the more they pushed for certain political people to play on emotion to support this stuff, to push it more into the public eye, which only raised more money and profits for the pharmaceutical companies, who paid more money to the crooked and corrupt politicians to keep advocating for it even more. It became its own vicious cycle.
Yeah.
I can agree with that with no argument.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And everybody seems to overlook that.
No.
Marx is Dead has a good comment over there.
Well, you know, that whole I don't understand why people would want to do that to other people. You know, like, you want to force other people to, you know, take on your ideology, which they don't agree with. And to me, that's just
that one
immoral.
That one.
Hey,
that one, Billy.
Go
ahead.
Well, Billy, that's because you're an honorable person, and honorable people can't square the circle of what these a-holes want to do.
That's because, Billy, and again, I keep saying this all the time, it's because they bought into their own hype. People forget that they're human beings still, deep down at their core, no matter what they identify as. Their emotions have caused them to accept what they've been fed lies about. They really believe that they are really this important. And, you know, it's just like feminists or any other of these groups you want to name. They really think that they're this hyped up. They've fallen for the lie.
Yeah.
And the thing is, once the rug gets pulled out from under them, they're going to be like everybody else, wondering, well, hold on a minute. Wait, we're more important than we are. No, you're being used like everyone else.
Yep.
Your sexuality is just the reason you're being exploited.
Right. And you know what? I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm not going to apologize for saying it. We can all agree that humans have made it as far as we have and advanced as much as we have because humans are pack animals. If it weren't for us working in tribes and working in groups and building civilizations, humans would not have come to where we are today. Can we all agree? Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any flaw in that logic?
No.
So
I know the what is it? ape strong together thing is a bit of a meme and a joke, but we can't advance without collaboration.
Correct. Now, theoretically, if an individual decided to take it upon themselves to refuse to render aid to others of their species, what's the long-term effects of that?
Eventual die-off.
Well, there's going to be a genetic bottleneck. There's going to be a thinning of the herd, so to speak. If someone decides and creates more of a movement of saying, let those who play stupid games, let them win their stupid prizes. Don't let your enemy, don't stop your enemy from making mistakes. Eventually, those that keep making mistakes are going to eventually, not exist. They're going to dwindle themselves out of the population on their own.
Yeah, I forget who said it. Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a tactical mistake.
Sun Tzu.
Yeah, Patton said something very similar to that too.
And what I don't understand too is people that like are okay going along with this stuff. Like, good.
Well, again, everybody has been lied to in this. Everybody, men, women, no matter what ethnicity you are, no matter what you claim to be.
Well, sure, but I mean, you could use your own sense of moral and all that to understand that, right is right and wrong is wrong. Like when, going back to that bake the cake, the people. So do you guys know the whole story behind that?
Yeah, I do.
So real quick. So a gay couple they walked into a bakery knowing that it was run by a Christian husband and wife type deal. And they're like, you need to bake us a cake for our wedding. And the guy refused. And then these people turned around and sued him.
Well, if I remember right, didn't they offer to bake a cake, but they wouldn't put wedding decorations on it for these people?
I think after, at the end of the day, that's after a big, long, it was years long lawsuit. And then like that, I forget exactly how it all transpired. Like it ended, but then another fucking group of assholes went in and tried doing the same thing to the same people.
Yeah.
And they had to go back to court, and I'm pretty sure they went out of business.
Well, if I remember right, wasn't it in the state of California?
Yeah, Colorado? It was a Colorado bakery.
Yeah.
And weren't they basically trying to use an extrajudicial commission to do that?
That's what they're trying to do.
I mean, that's so, and people would like support that. Like, why would you? That's like so wrong. I don't know why
it is.
But there's like people who look at that, right, and say, oh, they're so right. Teach them a lesson. And it's like, look, other people don't, like, we don't have to all think the same. We don't have to have the same beliefs. Just because they don't want to make you a cake, it doesn't make them evil.
Hey, Billy, wasn't that in the first Trump administration?
No, that went back to like Obama.
Yeah, that was
going on for years.
Because I remember something very similar in the first Trump.
That was like 10, 12 years ago when that case happened.
That might have been the repeat offense, but there needs to be something in place where it's like, okay, you got hit once, but what is it? It's like, what is it?
Double jeopardy?
No, not that. What is it? I forget what the word is, but you're using the legal system to bully somebody, or it is malicious lawsuit filing, like the retard who kept trying to get Grand Theft Auto pulled off. He got barred or disbarred, sanctioned, and can no longer practice law because he was frivolous lawsuit. Yeah, there's a saying for if you bring up too many it's abuse of the legal system. I just can't put the words to mouth at the moment.
Malicious
there was a Supreme Court case in 2020, I believe, or 2021, where they reviewed that Colorado cake case, and the Supreme Court overruled it, and said it was a violation of that cake baker's first against their constitutional rights, forcing them and compelling them to speak and or write something they did not agree with, and you were forcing and compelling speech from somebody. Right. And that's where that all got changed again, even in the second case, and then that opened the first couple and the second couple to be sued by that cake maker.
You said that was back in 2020, correct?
The compelled speech case, I believe, was 2020 or 2021.
That's why I thought it was that point. That I was going out with that one psychopath that you guys have heard me talk about on Rhino's show before. Yeah. And because she was real big on the LGBT BS, I was forced to listen to it on a regular basis. And she didn't exactly like when I told her that they had no business even going to that bakery. They should have just used the one down the street that may not have made as nice a cakes, but was friendly to their cause.
I don't know. To me, the whole thing was just wrong. It's just wrong.
Well, it was clearly a targeted attack. I mean,
yeah,
you know.
Well, and the thing is, it's the same concept as what the Renaissance painters were, and everyone forgets the Renaissance painters were essentially tradesmen of the time. And these, you would not have had Michelangelo painting a satanic image on something. He would not have taken that contract.
Well, actually back then, if someone was actually asking for something like that, they would actually be deemed a heretic by the Catholic Church.
I'm just using a random example.
But yeah, they wouldn't do that because that would put them at risk with the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think we have time for one more story?
Sure.
All right. We'll keep it short because Rhino is going to be getting on. I know probably all you guys are probably going to go over there. So
maybe not. I don't know. It's getting late.
We'll see.
Yeah, it's a little late in the Central time zone.
So Elon Musk, he's kind of creating waves over there in DC. So billionaire businessman Elon Musk is on a collision course with lawmakers on Capitol Hill who are starting to challenge his authority.
Uh-oh.
Senate Republicans acknowledge they need to cut government spending, but Musk's bold decisions to lock federal workers out of the U.S. Agency for International Development, which Musk called a ball of worms and a criminal organization, caught them by surprise. Now, it probably caught them by surprise because I believe it was 97% of the people who worked there were all donating to Dems causes. I don't know.
Crusader, do you want to tell him or should I tell him?
Go for it, Mando.
We kind of talked about this on Cliff's stream as well.
So the U.S. this organization, the USAID, has been found to be basically promoting the leftist agenda throughout the world, not just. So it was basically, if I get this correct, it was set up during the Kennedy administration to promote U.S. thinking, good old American pie and Chevys and whatnot all across the world as a battle against communism thinking and ideology.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
And then what that eventually turned into, once the Democrats all just took over the institutions as they've been doing for the last 30 years, is then turned it into their ideology, promoting the whole trans thing and all the bullshit, not just here in this country, but throughout the world. So how do you think this will affect world politics going forward?
Well,
Well,
Sorry. This is going to be earth-shattering globally because there's what the USAID originally was founded for was to start the shaky dominoes in other nations instead of going towards communism to go towards capitalism to follow in the United States footsteps and not follow the communist footsteps. Then what happened is they actually started implementing a number of different things nationally and internationally. And with that happening, they started working ins in different nations, and allegedly the USAID was working with not only with the State Department but with the couple of other lack of intelligence agencies, as I like to call them, and they were starting to fund and manipulate other forms of government in other countries, much like the civil unrest that was occurring here over the past 5 years or more. I guess we can say that what these people need to be very careful of is if anything they did or anything they funded, if there's a credit card receipt that comes up that they paid for a pallet of bricks in Ferguson, Missouri, there's going to
all right. Good. Sorry.
Yeah, it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of questions asked. We'll just say that.
Good.
So this can be very treacherous and a very slippery slope, and could give the U.S. government a very big black eye for doing destabilization actions internationally.
hey, Crusader, let's just say they need to be careful because we've done some hinky stuff and we don't want it to completely come out of the bag.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying to make this as YouTube friendly and polite as possible, while also getting the point across.
Yeah.
So here's another question. How do you guys feel about Elon Musk being in charge of this operation?
It won't
I'm fine with
long.
it.
It won't last long.
Right. To me, it seems more of
Yeah,
like a consultation right now. Like this isn't a permanent thing.
No.
But the thing is with Elon Musk, he's kicking over too many anthills,
Yeah.
and it's going to have a stop put to it real quick if he doesn't either throttle down or get a little bit more tactful.
He has a way of doing things about him, and much like Howard Hughes, they were both celebrated in their time, but also demonized in their time. I mean, there's an old saying from some old comic book movies and stuff like that: if you live long enough, you'll live to see yourself become the villain. We're going to see him get demonized. And if there's a change of the guard in 4 years, his SpaceX contracts with the government, all of his other things, you're going to get people of the opposite side of the aisle getting into major automotive companies. You're going to get people that are going to start, ostracizing him and shutting him down financially and business wise. And he's going to, more than like his dad, like his dad left Canada, he's going to have to leave the United States.
Well, I'm going to point something out, Crusader. I think that Elon is smart enough that if he sees that the winds are changing towards the lefties harder than can be countered, I think what he's going to end up doing is moving as much of his stuff to offshore locations as he can, and basically saying arrivederci to the States. But kind of like what you're saying, but he's going to do it before anything occurs.
Well, unfortunately,
it'd be a tragedy if that happened and he decided, well, fine, screw you. I'm taking my tech to China.
Well, the thing is, somebody like him, what would happen?
I don't think he'll go to China.
No. What he'll more than likely do is he will move all of his assets to South Africa or move his assets somewhere else where he can actually insulate his finances, and then go somewhere where, Uzbekistan, or go somewhere, some podunk, third world other nation, where he's going to go there and pretty much become a god.
Honestly, I think he'd be turn into something of a left or right wing version of George Soros, where he'll go someplace like Finland or Denmark where there's relatively few regulations, and not quite setting himself up as a god, but basically be manipulating things from behind the scenes.
Right, but when I say make himself a god, what he's going to do is he's going to go to a non-extradition company or a country, a non-extradition, a non-UN nation where no one's going to be compelled to turn him over. And what he's going to go do is he's going to go to someplace like, some podunk nation where he can, basically buy the government for what he wants and insulate his finances and bring in anything and everything he's going to ever want. And he's going to sit back and start kicking over more anthills and play the game of, you want to try to ostracize me in society, I'll burn your whole house down.
I can definitely see that happening.
What I worry more about is not more or less Elon's personal assets and his personal security, because I'm sure he's well thought that out. It's his companies. It's the vendors he relies upon to get parts in. It will be political authorization, because people who supply Tesla or SpaceX are going to find themselves under investigation or under some sort of retributional, punitive action that is technically not illegal to do until somebody takes a deeper look into it. But we know what happens in Democrat-run governments.
I'm going to
show you the person will show you the crime.
Not for me.
I'm going to point something out here real quick. By hitting USAID first, because I think they were the first one that Doge went after, they've essentially they have essentially hit the funding mechanism for all of these groups, including the debanking in the organizations.
Yeah,
this was kind of a.
He knew what he was doing.
This was kind of a masterstroke. What he did was he decapitated their funding right off the top. And even if the Dems in the Senate managed to force a reopening of USAID, now the public is going to be looking at it and going, wait a minute, why are we spending money on ...
Right.
So they're gonna have to do like cockroaches always do and find a new hole to hide in.
So here's an interesting, because we're coming to the end here, and what's funny is, so Red Pill Rhino is doing a whole stream on what we're talking about right now.
Oh my god,
a whole stream on it. So we're gonna finish up here, and then everybody can go over to Red Pill Rhino. But I want to get you guys' opinion on this, because I think this is why I've left it up here. Do you think Marx is Dead says everybody's arming up and to make sure they can put down Summer of Love 2.0? Do you think spring/summer this year we're going to see a lot of shit go down?
I think
it's highly likely.
I think they're going to try to. But this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the USAID. That was used as a laundering organization for a lot of hinky stuff, allegedly. And with that being frozen and stopped, now it's going to be a lot harder for all of these wacky groups to start getting the funding they need to be able to justify however many millions of people they're going to need to mobilize. And they're going to need to mobilize in massive numbers to even make a dent.
Yeah, Mando, you make a very good point, but I'm going to counter you on that, because one thing we can agree on is an individual can be smart, but people are stupid. There are a lot of very clueless, very mindless people of, I support insert new movement here now. How many people have we seen put this country or that country's flag over their picture because of whatever event? What's going to happen is you're going to get a Summer of Love 2.0 style event occurring. And what's going to happen is it's going to come down to either one or two things. Either they're going to invoke the insurrection clause and start charging people with sedition and start locking them up and throwing away the key. That either it's going to be something like that, or it's going to go into something where you're going to have another, I hate to say it, it's going to have to be something like that, where you're going to have another style or type of event where you have a mob doing something and some college girl or some old lady or someone's going to get beat to death.
Okay, let me ask you this question, Crusader.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm sorry to do this, Billy. I know you're trying to close this out.
It's okay.
Let's say hypothetically you're not wrong, and they try doing this nonsense where they do their riots in places that have friendly prosecutors. The current attorney general is an individual who appears to be willing to go to the mat.
Yeah.
What are the odds that she goes ahead and orders the local federal prosecutors at these locations to up those charges to federal charges? Because it doesn't matter how many of those foot soldiers they're able to get out. If you start seeing them get held to hard account, they're not going to be able to keep their people. I mean, they'll be able to keep the true believers, but that's about it.
Right, exactly. And let's just say, state of Oregon federal courthouse firebombing 2.0. I had a buddy that was injured for life there. Not cool. Don't support it. Now, if you have people firebombing a federal courthouse, can the federal government, can the DOJ go after said individuals?
Yes. It's attack or destruction of government property. That's
Correct.
a federal jurisdiction. And there's going to be a certain point where the useful idiots are going to wise up and go, dude, I'm all for the cause, but feds ain't fucking playing. And the feds don't play. There's a reason why their conviction rate is at 90+%.
And
and
that's honestly what I'm trying to get at, because the new attorney general, one of her first courses of action was to immediately kill federal funding to sanctuary cities.
Right. And that's why I said it's either one of two things is going to happen. Either we have a Summer of Love 2.0 and you have a federal prosecutor that hits these guys with a DT, if you know what I mean, a domestic terror charge. You hit them with that and you throw them in, ADX Florence for life. I guarantee you, after the first 40 or 50 people get thrown in prison for the rest of their lives, people are going to change their mind. That's going to be one thing that's going to happen. The other thing that's going to happen is some old lady, some old guy, some young, college student, young girl, naive, innocent, idealistic. She's going to be caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we're going to lose another life that way, which is going to cause the federal government, the DOJ, to get extremely heavy-handed nationwide. That's the only two outcomes realistic that I potentially see. Or number three, they decide not to actually do these riots.
Well, I hope they don't.
I hope they don't as well.
I'm going to add a fourth one to that. They try to do the riots, but they don't get the turnout they want because of the fact that they see the writing on the wall as to what will happen.
Or the riots were all done by the illegals and they're all gone at that point.
I honestly think that's part of it.
I hope you guys are right, but I mean, There's
Oh, I'm probably wrong.
Prepare for the worst, or expect the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah. Apply for Murphy's Law and have 6 other backup plans beyond that.
Yeah. And with that, we're going to turn it over to Red Pill Rhino. I've been putting both his YouTube link and his Rumble link for you guys to follow over there. And I'm sure many of the panel right here are going to be there as well.
At least for a little while.
I might be tempted to go over there.
Some more. Yeah. So do we need any final thoughts? We'll go real quick. Nate?
Be happy, be healthy, be safe, take care of yourself, do good deeds, be a better man tomorrow than you were today.
Awesome. Sean?
No, I think what is it? Prepare, expect the worst, hope for the best. That's the best I can actually say at the moment.
All right. Thank you. Oh, thanks for all your articles too. You really helped me.
Yep, not a problem. Just ask anytime.
Thank you. Outlaw, what do you got?
What is that Shinobi 1 says? Trust no one and question everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just know the fine line between being paranoid and being informed.
Yeah. And Mando, what do you got?
A question that everyone should ask themselves. Who do they serve and who do they trust?
Very good. All right, guys. So links again are in the chat there. Jump over to Red Pill Rhino if you want to hear some more of this, and we want to finally see Rhino, who's been hiding for months. I will leave you with the only thing I got queued up is one of my songs. So I'll catch you guys. Oh, what's my final thoughts? My final thought: take care and brush your hair. You don't want to leave the house with your hair a mess, right? All right. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. We'll be talking about more of this silly stuff that we talk about during these things. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and a great weekend coming up. And stay warm if it's cold by you. And we'll catch you next time. Let me pull up a video. All right. Take care, guys.